Welcome to Formosa Dream Chasers.
We're your hosts, Mary Ann
and Qing-en.
Please join us as we explore the journeys amazing people take in pursuit of their dreams.
And get insights from their experiences.
Let's hit the road.
And get started. Thanks for tuning in to our conversation with Lee Han-wei. Today we learn of the challenges musicians, composers, and arrangers face and get his advice for people interested in pursuing a career in the music industry.
I hope you don't mind me asking, how do musicians and composers and arrangers, how do they make money?
So for classical musician, most of your income comes from three things. First is performance. You will have a lot of performance in different kind of composition, like you have a grand orchestra where you have like 200 people on the stage. You could have a chamber music group performance, like maybe 10 to 20 person on the stage. You can have your own solo music performance, a recital, which had maybe 1 or 2 people on the stage. But mostly you have to have performance. You have to have the chance for the audience to know you, know your music, and pay the ticket. I think it's the first aspect of earning in classical musician career. And the second, teaching. You have to have students from different age groups. Like for most of us, it's children, but sometimes retirees too. I think there's a lot of Taiwanese senior citizens who enjoy playing the saxophone.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And third of all, it's more of a composer arranger. Like you have to have commission. Mostly you have to have some performance to have your piece played. Like for all the composer I know, they always have different kind of performance they attend to perform. You have to have so many chains for your music to be played. Otherwise, you're not going to get any income and you're not going to get any attention from the audience, from the industry. And third, you are not going to have your own collection, because for a composer, arranger, it's very, very important to have your repertoire. You have to write, you have to accumulate your works, and they are going to be your portfolio. They are going to be something you are going to introduce to new customer, to new musician, to new audience. So mainly these three things.
And I'm wondering how long it takes to compose a new or arrange a new song from the beginning to the end.
It depends on what you had at your hand, because like I just said, you have to be resourceful. For example, the last rehearsal I attended, it was for a clarinet orchestra and 4 solo clarinetists, which means all I got is a clarinet band. So many clarinets, and you have to find a way to make the music they make very interesting, because it's all the same instrument. You can do a lot of things, but you have to have some experience. I would even say you have to take a risk to make your music sound different and interesting for others.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to get any commission.
So basically, you want your music to be played by as many musicians, but how will you keep track?
Sometimes they didn't. Like, there's a lot of occasion where your commissioned works are only one-time gigs.
How do you keep track of all of the people that play your music?
Yeah, it's always what we have been wondering, how to have royalties, because for composer like us, we didn't really have a publisher. So our musical piece cannot be published. So there's no like legal binding of how our piece is going to be played by whom. We couldn't really keep track of this. We will have contracts that make very clear that this piece of music that you commissioned, I composed, should be used exclusively by you, by the one who commissioned me. But for most of the time, I think it's rarely for us to have royalties, because first of all, we didn't have a publishing company to collect all the royalty for us. And second of all, also another big problem is that most of the gigs or most of the commission we had, it's a one-time chance. All the band, all the chamber music group, all the orchestra only play our music for one time or twice, but yeah, only one time's our majority. So there's no problem of royalty.
No offense, it seems like a very strange system to me.
Yes.
let's say you compose a piece of music and it's beautiful, it's haunting, it's wonderful, and then because it was played by an orchestra, I was moved and I really enjoyed it. Let's say I want to listen to that music again. Most likely I would probably buy the, I don't know, record of whatever.
Recording.
Right. But then you don't get the money. Am I wrong? Because they
No.
played it. Because they played it and then it's recorded, but you composed it. So how does that work?
You have to have a collection society. Yeah, you can also collect by yourself, but you have to join a collection society. Like in Taiwan, it's MUST.
You mean
MUST.
Like the organization who
For-
is responsible
For the royalty collection, yes. So you have to sign with a collection society before you get a royalty. And the royalty you get is mainly from the copyright system that requires you to pay the original composer with 3 kinds of usage. So the first kind of usage, you have your reproduction rights, which means that the works you made have to be reproduced by others. You're going to get some part of royalties. You have the
Okay.
public performance right, which
Okay.
means that the organization, the group, the orchestra who plays your works are going to pay you some royalty for
Okay.
public performance. You have public broadcast and public transmission,
Okay.
which means that whenever you're publicly broadcast the music, or you're going to upload the music on the streaming platform, the composer are going to get some royalties from that. But you have to have a collection society, and for join a collection society, you have to have your work published,
I see.
whether you have to publish it on paper or by recording. I think for younger composer, it's not as easy to have your pieces, to have your work recorded and published by anyone.
Because you're not recognized.
Yes.
Ah.
So that's the reason why our gigs are mostly one time, because we are not recognized enough to be published.
There are a lot of issues that needs to be solved. And are there any challenges or obstacles that you encounter on this journey as a composer and arranger?
Yes, there's so many challenges on this road. And I think the biggest challenges is yourself, or how you perceive yourself. Because for performing artists, it's very, very difficult because you are not performing your art by yourself. Like if you're writing for yourself, you write by yourself. If you're painting, mostly you paint by yourself. But if you're performing some art, you are performing with group of people who have to work with you. So if you perceive yourself not very well, it will be a disaster, because you will have a great amount of self-destructive thoughts, like how could I make this piece of art so bad? How can I make this kind of music? How can I write good music? You started to question yourself, and that's very, very difficult to overcome, because there's certain time I question myself a lot, and there's certain times my friends, my composer friends, question themselves very, very much, because how could I persuade myself that my music is good enough for a group of talented musicians to play? It's a very difficult question.
Like,
And is it good enough? No, it isn't. If it's not good enough, how can I make all this talented music to play my not good enough music?
So it sounds like one of the bigger challenges is having to deal with self-doubt,
Yes.
where there's this worry that whatever you present might be judged harshly by the people who are going to play your piece.
Yes, people are going to be judging. People are going to judge your piece of music, but for me, it's not people judging my music that makes me afraid. What makes me afraid is how I judge my music by others' judgment. I think the scariest point is that people are going to judge my music. I know that. I knew I have different aspects. I did have different ideas, and people sometimes might love the ideas, sometimes they didn't. it's okay. But if I didn't really approve my musical work, or I didn't really approve my work, how can I act like this group of talented musicians can play my work, even if my work is very bad? And it's kind of more like a self-doubt thing.
It sounds like you would be your harshest critic.
Yes.
So you judge your own work first, and then you would see all of the flaws. Because of that, you don't feel very confident about your work. And then it creates this negative cycle.
Yes, it's a constant circle. Yeah, I
I
think
see.
that's the biggest challenge for not only me, but a lot of composers.
Because we are talking about the challenges that you face as a composer and arranger, I wonder, like, compared to the other like composers and arrangers in the past, what are some of the challenges that modern or contemporary composer may have in their career?
I think that's what composer and musician, mainly musician, are facing now, that you have to serve a certain audience. It was aristocrat in Mozart's time, but it's now general public in our times. And if you produce something that you feel it's interesting, but not interesting enough for enough audience to support your living, it will be very difficult for you to be a composer.
There's this thing, right, that they say it's the lowest common denominator. And so you end up not really being true to your art
Yes.
because you end up making something that caters to the masses.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think that's the dilemma for many creative artists. I mean, no matter in which field.
So despite all the challenges, I will still find joy in my music, in the rehearsal or in the performance of my music. I always found joy when I heard my music played by the musician, when I heard their own interpretation into my music, and when I realized that, oh, so that wasn't bad. That wasn't as bad as I was imagining. And I think applause are the support I needed to keep creating something new. And sometimes the applause are not very, like, I'm not writing a hit song every year. I might not be able to connect with so many audience for my own artworks, but still I appreciate the feedbacks from the musician. I appreciate their advice, and I appreciate the face they make when they played my music and found it sounds good. That's something I would say that supported me in my music career.
Do you have any last words you would like to share to any aspiring musician or person who wants to get into the music field?
Keep your creative thoughts on a note, record it, and keep make different works. Accumulated them and maybe upload it to a streaming platform like SoundCloud, and keep making your own music. And with time passing, I think you will find the aspect you really want to make. I think you will find a story, a narrative you really want to share with others. And I think there's going to be someone who find your aspect interesting. So keep creating.
Before we wrap up this show, I want to ask, what would be your next step?
My future project, I think it's more about creating music based on stories of Taiwanese artists. There's a painter whom I'm very interested in. It's Chen Chenpo. So he was a painter from the Japanese colonial era, and he was shot when the 228 incident happened. His works make me think about being Taiwanese, or what does that mean to be a Taiwanese, because he doesn't really see himself as a Taiwanese as we think of ourselves as Taiwanese now, but at his era, I think he was developing his own identity. And I always find this pursuit of an identity and I would say ideal world. So Chen Chenpo is someone I really wanted to write about for the future years.
That's all the time we have for our conversation with Han-wei.
Thank you, Han-wei, for sharing your incredible journey with us. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to hearing more about your future adventures.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Qing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Again, this is Qing En.
And Mary Ann. See you guys next Sunday. Bye.